A few months ago, I did a video about the differences that I encountered with Celebrate Recovery, the Christian-based recovery group, versus my time in Quackaholics Anonymous. And I thought for this video I would kind of draw a parallel between my very brief time going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings versus going to AA meetings, NA. Again, I was only involved in Narcotics Anonymous for maybe 6 months, so not very long. I started going to those meetings after I'd been in AA for about 5 to 6 years, and I was going through a burnout phase, which it's really funny because it never occurred to me that I could just leave AA at that time period. I was under the impression that if I left AA, I was never going to be able to quit drinking, which is kind of comical to me now because the whole time I was in AA, I never could quit drinking. Get a couple of months, got several 90-day stints, got a few 6-month chips. One time I got a 9-month chip, one time I made a year medallion. Never could get any longevity, and it never occurred to me that AA wasn't helping me quit drinking any more than me trying it by myself was doing any difference. But and I was drinking fairly regularly in AA. I wasn't. Many times I'd leave a meeting and go to stop at a liquor store on the way home. I could kind of do a video about that because I got a few funny stories about that. But I got a little bit curious about NA. It was really funny because the two fellowships, AA is more open about the fact that they despise NA people. NA people are a little bit more subtle, a little bit more passive-aggressive. They'll tell you that they don't really hate AA, that it's all love in NA, that they accept everybody in NA. Not 100% true, but I started going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings just out of curiosity more than anything else. I didn't know what to expect. AA had sent some underhanded comments in their direction. During the time I was in there, occasionally someone would bring up an NA meeting or they would bring up a CA meeting. I never went to any of those. The Cocaine Anonymous, I think it is. But it was always in a very derogatory manner. Which is funny because they both use the same exact 12 steps, but yet they're high-handed and arrogant and sanctimonious about whose religious cult is better than the other religious cult. It's kind of like I've seen AA groups actually put each other down, believe it or not, about which one is a real AA meeting or not. I don't know if I ever did a video on real AA meetings or not. I may just take a quick glance through my channel and see, because that's worth a video of itself right there. But when I first started going to NA, the first thing that kind of struck me it was in a community center. I remember that much, and I remember it was in October. There was Halloween pumpkins on the windows. There was the jack-o'-lanterns, at the step breezeways when you walked in. There was the cardboard cutout, black cats and pumpkins and all of that. I remember that. I remember the leaves, and I remember the change of the seasons was kind of present. I had a jacket on for the first time that year. And when I went in, the first thing that struck me was how many people wanted to come up and hug me. Now, yeah, Italian background, I'm used to hugging other people. I'm used to hugging other guys, but it's generally people I am related to or I know really, really, really well. As far as hugging complete strangers, a little bit different. I was a little bit thrown by it, but I was like, okay, this is their thing apparently. Everybody hugged everybody. Everybody kind of did the whole glad you're here thing, but they'd all put their arm around you. And like I said, that was a little bit strange to me at first. I didn't mind getting hugged by attractive girls that were in there, but I mean, it was still kind of strange just hugging strangers. I usually, if I'm going to hug people, it's generally because I know them. I'm just not the kind of guy that hugs someone that I barely know. But, it wasn't like it just immediately put me off or anything like that. But I noticed that NA people have a different type of tight-knitness. Like in AA social cliques or however you want to call it, after a meeting, they break up into their little groups, and if you kind of walk towards any of their little groups, they kind of throw you this ugly, sneering glance of, we are the aristocrats and you're the lowly, bottom garbage dump, whatever you are, kind of attitude. In NA, it was a little bit more subtle. It was almost like they were more like a tight-knit clan community type situation, and if you were an outsider, you were just kind of, it wasn't overt. It was kind of an underhanded, passive-aggressive thing. There was nobody that was just downright hostile towards me during my short time in NA. And again, these were only a few NA meetings over a 6-month period versus 11 some odd years in AA meetings. So I can't really give you an overall adequate synopsis. I can only tell you what I experienced. I just noticed they weren't in the elitist, arrogant, exclusionary type behavior, but they were very tight-knit. It was almost like, if you were an outsider, you just kind of felt like an outsider. Unless you let them know that you're in AA, which I made the mistake of doing, and that's what I'm going to get to a little later. The format of the meeting, there was so much stuff they had to read. They read something about how alcohol is a drug like any other drug. Some addicts try to drink alcohol. You're not clean if you're drinking alcohol. There was another paper they read about if you're prescribed legal medication, but you're using it to alter the way you feel. That's not being clean. That was another word that bothered me that I'll get to in just a second. There was a couple of people that had shared about going to a dentist, getting their tooth extracted and saying, they had to throw the pain pills away because their body doesn't know the difference between a legal buzz and an illegal buzz. I kind of found that a little bit funny because if anybody else out there has ever had their tooth pulled or a broken bone or anything like that, I'm going to take a pain pill if something like that happens. The one thing I did notice in the shares itself, that was a part of another paper they would read, is you're not supposed to talk about what you did before you got to NA in terms of you wouldn't tell a story about, shooting dope, behind the building somewheres, or you wouldn't tell a story about doing coke or, something like that. There's a friend of mine in the anti-AA group that's always talking about being behind an Applebee's dumpster with a raccoon. Or is it a raccoon? Anyway, if she sees this, she'll know what I'm talking about. The war story of what a big badass drunk you were, it's not really looked... I've seen people share some minor details, but as far as going into detail about what drug they were taking or what they were doing, that's really heavily frowned upon. It's not really encouraged. One of the things that I found kind of bizarre in the shares is people would say things. It's a variation to me in my mind of. I know the William Shakespeare line about a rose by any other name, but I don't remember if it was a beatnik poet or one of the 60s hippies poets, or if it was Allen Ginsberg or one of them, but he had a poem about a rose is a rose is a rose is a rose. And I don't know if they were aware that they were doing a variation of that, but it just would strike me how many times that they would say, a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug, and anything that alters the way you feel is a drug. So, but I would hear people share something like, you guys know me really well, some of you. I am clean right now, but I have a thing about caffeine, and I really have a thing about doing a lot of coffee in the morning. And after all, a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug. And if you take a drug, it's a drug, whether it's a drug or a legal drug, or a drug is a drug. And I was like, well, I don't know how I feel about that. But somebody else said that they love donuts and that they were eating a whole lot of donuts. And they said, I'm clean today from the things I did that brought me into NA. I'm clean from those things. But, sugar, a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug. And if you're taking a drug to change the way and alter your consciousness and the way you feel, it's a drug, because a drug is a drug is a drug. And I would hear variations of this all the time. Someone would say, I've noticed that I'm taking a little bit too much sinus medication, but a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug. But anyway, I'm digressing on that. But one thing I noticed that was interesting in a lot of the shares that people would put forth was that word, like I said a few seconds ago, clean. Versus, sober. In fact, you could tell if a person sharing in an NA meeting was actually going to AA like I was doing. I even called him a fellow AA member hiding out in NA. I said, well, there's somebody else who's hiding out. But they would say sober. In NA, they always said clean. And when they talked about relapses, they would talk about using. Nobody would say something about, I'm lighting up a crack pipe again, or I'm getting needles or anything like that. They would just say I'm using, or I'm not actively using. The word clean I didn't really like for some reason. For one thing, I take tub baths and showers, and I do laundry all the time. I'm always wearing clean clothes. I use aftershave. I use deodorant. I brush my teeth twice a day. I use Listerine. Okay. I dust in this house. I can't stand any dust. I'm a pretty clean guy, to be honest, in spite of whatever people have discerned about my appearances. I've had people call me a raggedy bum on here before, but I assure you I'm a clean-looking bum. I'm a clean bum, let's put it that way. I just never could get comfortable with that word, clean. I mean, I am clean, okay? When I work hard all day long and I'm hot and sweaty, I get in the shower and clean up. I mean, when I wake up in the morning and I put on deodorant when I'm shaving around my goatee here, I'm clean. I just don't like that word, clean, when it comes to not using drugs. I mean, there was just something about it that always rubbed me the wrong way. I'm clean today, or people would say, I'm clean today, but, there was this temptation that came along, and I did this, and I got to tell you guys, a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug and a drug, But at first, I wasn't too put off by them. I mean, I kind of found them, I'm not going to say amusing, because it would be implying that I thought I was better than them or anything. I didn't really. I just found it different, and I didn't never talk in the meetings in NA, because anytime I'm new to anything, whether it's a job or a phony religious cult or a real religious cult or whatever it is, anytime I'm new to anything, I prefer to throw shade on myself and fly under the radar. I don't want to be center of attention unless it's with real close friends. I mean, I'm not a center of attention kind of person. So I never said anything in the actual meetings. Where my mistake came in was when I talked to some NA people after the meetings. There was a lot of people that would, after the meetings, they'd come up, they'd give you the hug, they'd say they were glad, to see you, then, that kind of thing, and then they would kind of split off into their little factions. But I remember a couple of people started up a conversation with me because they had never seen me before and they thought I was completely new. Where I messed up completely was I said, well, I'm not really new to the 12 steps. I'm an AA member. And there was like a complete 360-degree turnaround in the way they talked to me right after that. There was one guy, he was one of these, how can I say it? Man buns weren't a thing back then, but he was one of these, and I'm not saying this disparagingly, but he was one of the new age hippie kind of guys. He taught yoga for a living. He had environmental conscious bumper stickers on his what is that car? I can't think of the car now. He was always about, in here it's all love, it's all peace, and it's all love, and it's really love today, or something like. He was one of those kind of guys when he shared. But when he heard me say AA, he did a 360-degree turn on me, and he said, well, I don't like to speak ill of anyone, but people in AA meetings blame all their problems on drinking and alcohol. They don't do anything about spiritual living, a way of life. They don't understand that there's more to this disease that we have than just drinking alcohol. It's not about drinking alcohol. Drinking alcohol is a symptom, and they don't understand that. In NA, we know that drug use is is but a symptom of our problems of being clean. There's more to being, and I was like, okay, take it easy here. I'm not challenging you. I'm not doing the my cult is bigger than your cult bullshit. So, take it easy here. And I kind of thought he was a fluke, but then I let that slip up with a couple of other people, and a couple of other people said, well, and they would all do the same fucking thing. They were all these new age hippie kind of people, and they were all about love and acceptance and tolerance and the universe and love and light and the stars and the sun and the shining seas and all of that kind of thing until you said that word, AA, and they would all do the same thing. They would say, well, that other fellowship, it blames all its problems on alcohol. It doesn't understand anything about getting a relation with a power greater than yourself. It doesn't do anything about moral inventories or anything like that. It just blames their problems on alcohol. They all think there's nothing wrong with themselves as long as they're not drinking. They engage in abhorrent activity when they're just not drinking. That's what AA's problem. I was like, wait a minute here. Now don't make me take up for that fucking religious cult that I'm already starting to hate. But AA blabbers endlessly about morals. They don't practice them, but they blabber about them. They blabber endlessly about ways of life, even though they don't do anything but make a career out of sitting in meetings and drinking nasty coffee and bitching and moaning about how unfair the world is because they didn't get a parking spot that morning. But it's a little bit of a stretch here to say that it's just about blaming their problems on alcohol, even though they're, this was just kind of funny to me. But I saw shortly after that, I was sitting in a meeting. Now, for newcomer meetings, it was kind of, at least in the NA meetings I went to, it was handled a little bit differently. They didn't do like the AA newcomer meetings, which I always fucking hated those, because that's the chance for every old timer to tell you what a major fucking badass they were back in the day and how now they're, they got a direct phone line to the AA higher power. The AA higher power and them have a great relationship. They prey on newcomers together because the AA higher power, God wills that. They don't really do a newcomer meeting like that. They just more or less talk about like, is this anybody's first NA meeting? Now this is the ones I went to, and they would say, because there's new people here, we're going to talk about the first step tonight. And everybody would talk about kind of the same thing. Because there was no war stories, they would skirt around the issues. They had a few comedians, you had a few gurus, and things like that. But it was, kind of a tit-for-tat thing. And the reason I'm telling you guys all this is because every single newcomer meeting or first-time NA meeting that I went to, inevitably someone had to tell this tale. They would say, well, there's one guy, he said, I was in detox and I was in serious shape. I mean, I was going out of my mind. I was going out of my skull. I was climbing walls, I was just slamming my head into the bars on the windows, and they had the 12 steps on the walls in the detox unit, and I saw that other fellowship, and I said, those people are blaming their problems on alcohol. That ain't what I need. I need a real fellowship. And like 2 or 3 people would do the same thing. They would say, when I was in prison and I walked into a meeting and it had the 12 steps on it. And I said, I'm in the wrong fellowship. I'm in the other fellowship because this meeting's about alcohol. I just got up and left the prison meeting, and a few people stood up and clapped afterward. You get my point here. It's cringe-worthy shit, but I kept hearing that over and over again. That other fellowship, that other fellowship. It was like there was something insidiously wrong with AA, which there is, but it was the way they would phrase it. It was almost like that meeting which must not be named or something like that. They would say, there's people in that other fellowship. And of course, AA is no better. AA is very open in their condescending, sneering hostility towards NA people. But I just thought it was funny that when I was attending NA, it was all about love and like I said, the stars in the sky, the shining seas and the deepest of the oceans are all connected to my biorhythms kind of thing. But until you said the dreadful words of that other fellowship, but the thing that I don't remember exactly what made me finally quit going altogether, but I remember another point of contention the NA people had. They had this major problem with, well, you know, back when NA first started, the FBI used to watch the NA meetings because the government was after drug addicts, okay? The NA meetings were staked out by the police. We had NA meetings in the homes of people, with people upstairs looking out the windows, telling people that the cops had not left yet. That's how serious we were about getting clean. Did anybody in AA ever walk into a meeting where they were being staked out by the FBI? I don't know how true any of this is, but I mean, again, take it easy, okay? The FBI is not watching NA meetings today. I'm pretty sure of that. Okay. So, and besides, if that did happen in NA, that happened back in the 1950s. You weren't there, so don't act like you're all upset about something that has nothing really to do with you at all. But there was this definite vibe from both of them that, you know, my cult is better than your religious cult. My religious cult risked going to prison. My religious cult got watched by the FBI. Your religious cult never did nothing but blame its problems on alcohol. The AA people would say stuff like, NA people are people who want to smoke marijuana to get off crack cocaine. That's what you get in NA. Well, you know, and besides that, the NA fellowship was not founded by a man like Bill W., who had a white light experience. A white light experience. Yeah, he got a direct phone call from God. Unlike the NA people, even though they have 12 steps with the same horse shit that your fellowship does, God doesn't care about them as much. He cares about alcoholics way, way more because... Anyway, if anybody had any experiences with NA as far as the 13th step in, as far as the gurus, you know, leave a comment below or throw in some of your own feedback about it. Like I said, I didn't get to know any of the NA people well enough to ever find out what was going on behind the scenes. I know they complained about the predatory behavior that went on in AA meetings, but the AA people used to complain about the real predatory behavior that went on in the NA meetings. I just always thought it was funny that two religious cults were at war with who has the more enlightened spirituality than the other religious cult. I never checked out any of the others, you know, like CA. I don't know. Or anything like that. I did know an AA member who went to Al-Anon, but I don't have any experience with that one either, so I really can't talk on any of those. I just think it's like I said, I celebrate recovery. I was exposed to Narcotics Anonymous. I was exposed to, like I said, leave a comment below. What is it every YouTuber is saying nowadays? Oh yeah, hit the like button or press subscribe. Anyway. 22 minutes and 53 seconds, and I think I've pretty much demonstrated all the points I can make for this one. So until next time.